share stories of LGBT individuals and our allies in order to build true community, one cocktail at a time.
People not listening.
Yay! Welcome back.
Yes.
So, how do you guys know each other?
Well, this one is is the best choreographer I've had the pleasure to work with. I reached out to him after attending one of his dance classes. When you worked with me and you did the numbers for me, you like understood what I was doing in the song, and you brought like this just originality and uniqueness that I just really enjoy and love. So it was a pleasure to work with you twice now.
Oh.
So, yeah.
It was nice to get the opportunity to do something sort of original. But it's also nice to get to work with Barrier Flash Mob because I get to, my dance teachers were Britney Spears and Janet Jackson in my living room.
Yep.
Wow.
In slow
Like on
motion.
TV.
I would record the music videos and meticulously from live performance, I would nail it. I would work so meticulously to nail it.
That sounds
and
like
now
you.
it's kind of my,
You nailed it though. You were like so good at it.
You
That's
are
my
good.
thing.
And you teach
Yes.
so many people how to do that. Hundreds of people, right?
It's fun, and one of my things is that you got to keep them laughing. Is that like because dance classes can be so stressful, and people you want the ego out of the door because at the end of the day we're dancing to Britney Spears. Can we please check the egos? We're doing like "Slave for You, Baby One More Time." Like let's have fun, you know.
Yeah.
So I like to crack a lot of jokes, and I'm a huge pop culture fanatic. So like I'll tell you all like the gossip, and I'll be like, you know, Wade Robson and Britney Spears, they had an affair, and that's why Britney Spears and Justin aren't together anymore.
See?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
What?
That's why you come to my dance classes, you'll hear all the gossip.
What makes you angry?
Oh, gosh. How much time do we have?
Take all the time you need.
I guess my biggest thing that really makes me angry, and I think this will umbrella into a lot of different things, is I guess people not listening.
I'm sorry, what?
People not listening. I guess when people don't listen, and I bring this into context in terms of there's a lot of when talking about racism specifically, I find that like especially like with white folks, especially white hetero males, that they're so used to that their opinion counts or that they're the leaders and that we want to hear from them, and that's what's so challenging for them is because we don't want to hear from them. We don't want to hear anything from them. We just want them to shut up, listen to what it is that we're having to say, and that's it. And if you want to stand with us, that's great, that's fantastic. And if you don't, get out of the way.
The allies do help as long as they're helping in the right way, correct?
Yes.
How do they help? How do they help the cause? What do they do?
I always try to put myself in my shoes of like my own experience of my privilege. Like I'm privileged because I'm gay and I'm black, but I'm also a man. And so I always look at like my privilege as like, well, what comes to me because I'm a man. I try to be an ally towards women, and I consider myself to be a feminist. Because absolutely, because like, you know, I'm fighting my fights, and if we're all fighting the same thing, we're all fighting that same thing up there that's kind of keeping us all down.
It's all discrimination in some way.
Absolutely, yes.
And joining forces helps.
Absolutely. I look at like, you know, what is it that I can do as an ally, and you know, when I hear conversations about women's rights or you know, a woman's right to choose and all that sort of stuff, my biggest thing is I just listen. And then I try to read articles. Like, I don't make it your job to teach me about feminism or something, you know, or a woman's issue that is going on. But it is a lot of listening, but it's also like a lot of like shutting down when I see, you know, some dudes being a douchebag or being, that's a terrible term to use. See, wait, here's the thing that I learned. As an ally, oops, ouch, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say things, I've got so much, you know, systemic misogyny built in me that I'm trying to unpack it. So like, you know, catching myself in a moment when, like, I go through these ebbs and flows where I'm like using bitch way too much,
Too
and I'm
liberally.
like
But
too
that's
liberally.
incredibly educational for me. 'Cause I'm like douchebag. Well, I
You
never
know,
thought of it from that perspective, but I guess that could be.
I guess it
yeah.
could.
And it takes that
for
sort of
me,
awareness.
I never thought of it.
Because I'm so comfortable with you all,
Yeah.
but I don't know these folks out
Whoever's
here.
watching. Hi.
Hi. So catching myself and to being aware, and a lot of it is also about like language is also really important, and that's a
It
huge
is.
thing when we're doing our shows with youth is unpacking like what language means of like, it's one thing if we're just random friends calling each other bitches and that sort of stuff, but what about the people who are outside of that hearing that, or and not forgetting the history behind these words.
Right,
It's one
right.
thing to say it like, in certain communities and pockets of people are more comfortable with certain words than others, and like I don't like to use the word fag or I don't use the N-word, but I understand those. But I understand those within our community.
Within our community.
Who have
like
embraced
the
it.
N-word is a big one for me.
Yes.
I speak about it in my record, Face of America.
You do.
But it just bothers me to no end. Like I catch my mom using it all the time. I'm like, Mom, you need to stop using that word. But in our community, it's so rampant, and it doesn't mean the same thing
Right.
as when other people say it.
Does she use it in a way that sort of takes it back?
Well, that's what
Reclaims
it's all about, is reclaiming it and making it mean something different. But I'm like, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Where does that word stem from? And I don't. When you can say that you taking it back and giving power to it, but all you're doing, in my mind, is reaffirming that we're less than, that we're something else, that this is what we think of ourselves, and I can't stand it. But I accept it within our community because I know it's something that's not going to go
Yes,
away to
right.
a certain extent. But I speak out against it. Me personally, all I can do is be responsible for my actions.
Right.
I'm not going to use that word.
Yeah. How about this? I'll throw this at you.
Yeah.
The LGBT community, I think, and this is also generationally different.
Yeah.
I think that we've reclaimed the word queer.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I like the
not
word, but
everybody.
not everybody does.
Not everybody does.
Right.
I like it because I think that it's such an umbrella term.
It is.
that
It encompasses many different things and many different
things.
people who don't really quite know how to identify.
Yeah.
Queer kind of sums it up, right?
I agree.
But
You
some
know?
people feel like it's a really negative term because they've been, oh, you're queer.
Right.
But-
So-
and so they haven't, and they just feel like it's a derogatory term still. So they're not comfortable with it.
So my question is then, when does it really become about context? Because I don't want to be in a place, or I can't personally see myself being in a place where we're so politically correct all the time that we can't have free language and free expression.
Right.
This makes me think about the whole tranny thing, right?
Oh, I know,
Like
right?
when that whole thing came up, I'm like, well, depending on how you're saying it, I can see how it could be taken out of context, or it could be used to be really derogatory and inflammatory. But in a different circumstance, then it's empowering, right? It's kind of having that same argument. I mean, where's the dividing line?
So
What do
hard
we?
to
What do we?
say.
Here's what I would like to say, and this is
Yeah.
probably my hippy dippy UC Santa Cruz sort of listen,
Yeah.
is that I think and this is where a lot of our arguments come into, especially within the liberal community, is that we can't really agree with it about semantics.
Right.
It comes down to semantics, and it makes sense because we each have a different history of life, and different words mean different
Absolutely.
things to different people. Like, an apple brings up different memories to me than it might to you, and I think it's like just a matter of being, I think we need to be flexible with our beliefs and our ideas and how we move and operate and interact with each other. Women just really don't work as hard as men.
I'm finally
Right? Exactly.
free. I'm